Here's a question that most people never actually stop to answer. How much money do you need to never work again? Not to retire at 65 with your fingers crossed, not to coast on Social Security and hope for the best. I'm talking about waking up Monday morning and choosing, for the rest of your life, whether you work or not. If you've ever Googled that question, you've probably seen a number that made you close the tab and go back to work. $2 million, maybe more. And here's the problem with that number. It doesn't just feel out of reach. It makes most people stop trying altogether. Why bother saving if the finish line is that far away? But what if I told you that number is almost certainly wrong for you personally? That the real number, the lowest amount you actually need, could be less than half that? And that the way it's calculated is something you can control starting today? By the end of this video, I'm going to show you a formula backed by decades of real financial research that will tell you your specific number, not the average American's number, yours. And we're going to do something a little different here at Money Outlier. We're not going to tell you what the average person does. We're going to ask, what would a money outlier do instead? Stick around, because the reveal at the end of this video might genuinely change how you think about money forever. Let's get into it. Before we can find the lowest number, we need to understand where the big, scary number comes from. So let's talk about the average American. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is fresh data released in December 2025, the average American household spent $78,535 in 2024. That's $6,545 every single month. Housing, transportation, food, healthcare, entertainment, all of it. And before you say, well, that's not me, let's hold that thought for a second because it might be closer to you than you think. Now, here's the question that financial freedom actually comes down to. What if you didn't have a paycheck anymore? How much money sitting in investments would you need to generate $78,535 every single year without ever running out? This is where most people get confused. They think you need to save $78,000 a year forever, or that you need to work until 65 and hope a pension covers it. But that's not how this works. The real answer lives inside one of the most important studies ever done in personal finance, and almost nobody talks about it. In 1998, 3 finance professors at Trinity University published a paper that would quietly become the backbone of the entire financial independence movement. Their question was simple: how much of your investment portfolio can you safely spend every year without running out of money? They looked at nearly 70 years of stock market and bond data. They tested every possible 30-year retirement window. Great markets, terrible markets, the Great Depression, the crashes, all of it. And what they found became known as the 4% rule. Here's what it means in plain English. If your money is invested in a diversified portfolio, think index funds, you can withdraw 4% of your total balance every year, adjust that amount for inflation, and statistically, your money will last at least 30 years. In most historical scenarios, it lasts much longer. Think of it like a bucket. Every year you take a little water out, but the market, historically averaging around 10% annually over the long term according to Fidelity, keeps refilling that bucket faster than you drain it. Now, flip that rule around and you get something even more powerful. If 4% of your portfolio equals your annual expenses, then your total portfolio needs to be 25 times your annual expenses. This is called your FIRE number. Financial independence, retire early. And this formula is the most important equation in personal finance that your school never taught you. Let's run it for the average American. $78,535 multiplied by 25 equals $1,963,375. There it is, almost exactly $2 million. That's where that number comes from. It's not made up, it's real math for the average person with average spending. But here's where it gets interesting. The average person looks at that $2 million number and either panics or gives up. A money outlier looks at the formula and sees something completely different. They see 2 levers they can pull. Lever 1, how much you spend each year. Lever 2, how much you invest each month to reach your number. Pull lever 1, reduce your spending, and something almost magical happens on both sides of the equation at the same time. Let's say you decide to live on $50,000 a year, instead of $78,535. Maybe you have a lower cost of living. Maybe you've cut out the stuff that doesn't actually make you happy. Maybe you paid off your car. Now run the formula. $50,000 multiplied by 25 equals $1,250,000. Your finish line just moved $750,000 closer. But a true money outlier doesn't stop there. They ask, what's the minimum comfortable life I could actually sustain? Not deprivation, not suffering, just intentionality. What if your annual expenses were $40,000? That's still above what the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports as the average for the lowest income quintile in America, and plenty of people live full, happy lives on that. $40,000 multiplied by 25 equals $1 million. And what if you bring it down to $30,000 per year? That's actually possible in lower cost of living areas, with a paid-off home or with a modest lifestyle designed around experiences rather than stuff. $30,000 multiplied by 25 equals $750,000. You've cut the average person's required number nearly in half. But here's the part that really blows people's minds. And this is where I want you to pay close attention, because the grand reveal is coming. When you reduce your annual spending, you don't just lower the amount you need, you also increase the amount you're able to save. Which means you reach your number faster, and your number is smaller. You're sprinting toward a closer finish line. This is the compounding power of intentional spending, and it's the move that separates money outliers from everyone else. Let's make this real with 3 people, all starting at zero, all investing in a simple S&P 500 index fund, earning the historical long-term average of approximately 10% per year. Meet Average Andy, Optimizer Olivia, and Outlier Omar. Average Andy spends $78,535 a year. His FIRE number is $1.96 million. He saves $500 a month. At 10% annual growth, it takes Andy roughly 40 years to hit his number. But let's slow down and really look at what's happening inside Andy's journey, because this is where most people completely lose hope. After year 1, Andy has around $6,280 invested. Not very exciting. After 5 years, thanks to compounding, he's sitting at around $38,000. Still feels small. After 10 years, roughly $96,000. He's getting there. But the finish line at $1.96 million still feels impossibly far. Here's where it gets interesting. At year 20, Andy crosses $340,000. And then something shifts. The compounding starts doing the heavy lifting. Between year 20 and year 30, his portfolio doesn't just grow, it accelerates. By year 30, he's at around $986,000. And in the final stretch, between year 30 and year 40, the math almost feels unfair. He crosses his finish line at 40 years, not because he saved harder, but because time and compounding finally caught up. Now let's look at Optimizer Olivia. She saves $1,500 a month toward a $1.25 million target. After 5 years, Olivia has around $115,000, almost 3 times what Andy had at the same point. After 10 years, she's approaching $300,000. And here's the key difference. Because Olivia's target is lower and her monthly contribution is higher, she hits her crossover point, and where compounding takes over much sooner. By year 20, she's at her finish line. 20 years to financial independence versus Andy's 40. And then there's Outlier Omar, $3,000 a month toward a $750,000 target. Omar hits $100,000 in under 3 years. By year 5, he's at $230,000, nearly a third of the way there. His compounding snowball is rolling fast, and his target is close. Omar crosses $750,000 in roughly 15 years. He reaches financial independence in the time it takes Andy to barely get halfway. Same income, same market. 3 completely different outcomes, driven entirely by spending choices and target size. That is the power of thinking like a money outlier. Now, one important note, because we do real numbers here at Money Outlier. The 4% rule was designed for 30-year retirements. If you're planning to retire early, say in your 30s or 40s, some updated research suggests a slightly more conservative 3.5% withdrawal rate may be safer for 40 to 50-year retirements. What does that mean for the math? Just multiply your annual expenses by 28 or 29 instead of 25 for a larger safety cushion. It adds a bit to the number, but the principle and the power of reducing your spending stays exactly the same. Now, before I give you the grand reveal, I want to address the 3 objections I know are forming in your head right now, because these are the exact thoughts that stop people from ever acting on what you just learned. Objection number 1. What about inflation? Won't my expenses go up over time? This is a fair and smart concern. The good news is the 4% rule already accounts for it. The original Trinity study built in annual inflation adjustments to every single withdrawal scenario they tested. In other words, your 4% withdrawal grows every year to keep up with rising prices. The research held up through some of the worst inflationary periods in American history, including the 1970s, when inflation hit double digits. So yes, inflation is real, and yes, the formula already has it covered. Objection number 2. What if the market crashes right when I retire? This one is called sequence of returns risk, and it's the most legitimate concern on this list. If the market drops 40% in your first year of retirement and you're still withdrawing 4%, you're selling investments at the worst possible time. This is real. But here's what the data shows. Even accounting for the worst historical market crashes, including the Great Depression and the 2008 financial crisis, a diversified portfolio using the 4% rule survived over 96% of all 30-year retirement windows tested. The people who failed were almost always withdrawing too much, too fast, with too little in stocks. The solution isn't to abandon the formula. It's to build a small cash buffer of 1 to 2 years of expenses so you never have to sell during a crash. Objection number 3. What about healthcare? I can't retire early without employer health insurance. This is the objection that stops most Americans cold, and honestly, it deserves its own video. But here's the short answer. Healthcare costs are real, but they're also plannable. The Affordable Care Act marketplace offers subsidized coverage based on your income level. And here's the irony, if you've designed your life around $30,000 to $40,000 in annual expenses, your income in early retirement may be low enough to qualify for significant subsidies. Many early retirees pay surprisingly little for solid coverage. It's a solvable problem, not a deal breaker. The bottom line on all 3 objections, they're real. They deserve respect, but none of them change the fundamental math we've been talking about today. Okay, you've been patient. Here it is. The lowest amount you need to never work again is not $2 million. It's not even $1 million, necessarily. The lowest possible number is this: your annual expenses multiplied by 25. That's it. That's the answer that decades of financial research points to. If you bring your annual expenses to $25,000, and that is genuinely achievable, especially with a paid-off home, low overhead, or a geographic move to a lower cost of living area, your number is just $625,000. For most people in their 30s or early 40s investing consistently, that number is reachable within 15 to 20 years. Some people do it faster. But here's the real insight. The thing that makes a money outlier different from everyone else scrolling past this video. The number was never the problem. The formula was the secret. Most people spend their whole life chasing a fixed number they heard somewhere, 2 million, 5 million, without ever doing the actual math for their own life. The average person is trying to hit a target that was designed for average spending. A money outlier designs their spending first and lets the target come to them. That's not your average financial thinking. That's the outlier move. So here's your homework before the next video. Take out your phone. Right now, pause if you need to, and add up what you actually spent last year, every category. Be honest. Multiply that by 25. That's your current FIRE number. Then ask yourself, what would it look like to reduce that number by 20%? 30%? What would I actually have to change? And would those changes genuinely make my life worse? Or just different? That's the question a money outlier sits with. In our next video, we're going to go one level deeper and talk about exactly where to put your money to make this formula work. Because spoiler, the vehicle matters as much as the amount. If this video made you think differently about the number, hit subscribe. Every week, we bring you the kind of financial thinking that the average person never gets around to. Not because it's complicated, but because no one told them it existed. I'll see you in the next one.